Okay, we are now recording. So welcome everybody to College Bound and COVID-19 Post-Secondary Planning During a Pandemic. My name again is Randall Studstill. I'm a librarian at the West Valley branch of the San Jose Public Library. Our presenter today is Amy Bencomo. Amy is the current college and career specialist at Prospect High School. She has over 7 years experience with every aspect of college and career planning. I am honored that she is volunteering her time today to present this valuable information for teens and parents. If I were in the library right now, I would ask you all to welcome her with some applause, but unfortunately we can't do that here in Zoom. But if you know how to use the clap your hands icon in Zoom, please do so right now. And I'm going to turn it over now to Amy.
Thank you, Randall. I hope everyone can hear me okay. And I'm really glad that you've taken the time to sign up for this presentation, attend it, and I hope that you find a lot of value. This is a unique time, and everything's going to be okay. Things are still rolling smoothly. Your child or yourself will be able to go to college, and there just may be a few adjustments that you need to prepare for. So we're going to go ahead and begin. And give me 1 second to get used to using my screen. All right, so what we're going to go over is first we're going to start with facts. I always find it comforting if you know the facts so that when you do your college applications, you're prepared and know what to expect. Some tips before you get started, an explanation of your high school years, the use of extra time and how you apply that to your college applications, defining fit colleges, responsibility, and that goes for mostly the responsibility of the student, not necessarily the parent, types of college applications, financial considerations, managing stress, and a whole bunch of resources. So there are a lot of different degrees when you are making your college planning. And the reason why I go ahead and list these is because if you are new to the US, you may not understand all the nuances of college applications and college degrees. So there's the 2-year degree, which is an associate's degree, and that's what you're going to find typically at our community colleges. Then we have our bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year degree, and that's primarily what we're talking about, going from high school directly to a 4-year school. And then beyond that, you have the master's degree, a doctoral degree, and other professional degrees. And those are in addition to your undergraduate degree. So some facts that should give you some comfort is there's 4,000 colleges in the US, and the national acceptance rate is 66%. So it's not what you hear all the time about college admissions is tough. It's not. There's a place for everyone. You do not need to attend one of the top 50 schools to be successful. If you pass all of your high school classes, you qualify for admission to a 4-year school. The California community colleges are free for first-time, full-time students. So that's a consideration that a lot of parents don't know, that you can actually save 2 years of your college education by going to a community college first. And they have a lot of programs that you can transfer directly into other 4-year schools. And then something new this year is taking the SAT and ACT are no longer a requirement for all schools. And moving forward in the presentation, if you see words in orange, that is how I've indicated something new for the time of the COVID. Okay, hold on. All right, so this is just more facts. Colleges with the most applications. The top 10 schools are listed here, and if you notice, 8 of the 10 are in California. What that tells us is California is a hot destination for going to school, and that we're a large state. So what happens, and what that means to you, is there are schools that are going to be impacted, which means that your degree may take longer to achieve. So it's okay to look outside of California. There's about 100 colleges in California, which means there's over 3,000 outside of California. Some tips before you get started, and I noticed that a lot of you are viewing as parent and child or student together. So this is a great time for you to come to some game rules as you're planning for your college application experience. Agree as a family to only discuss college applications or your search once a week. Think of it like a fitness routine. What happens is if you're checking your weight or checking your muscle mass every day, if there's not a lot of change day to day, but if you look once a week, you may notice a change. And that goes for students when they're making their college list and college drafts. You're not going to see a lot of change day to day, but if you give a week, that allows the student to prepare and anticipate the conversation, and also it allows you a moment of rest and with the pleasure of seeing things being done. You want to go ahead and establish a budget. Actually, applying to college can be expensive. So come up with a game plan for the applications, the visits, if it's possible to make any visits, testing. You may have actually just saved a lot of money by not being able to test, and attendance. Figure out how much you want to spend a year attending school. And then go ahead and invest some time in virtually knowing schools. Normally, I would suggest college visits, but that's not necessarily possible right now. Hopefully, it will be possible soon, and you can visit those schools you're most interested in. But virtually know schools that are on the college list, sign up for the newsletter, take online tours, look at their social media, and make notes of what you see and what's absent. So if you notice something at one school that you really like, but you can't find it anywhere else at a different school, make note of that, because things that you see and things that you don't see are actually equally important. Make use of the resources available at your high school. Every school has a college and career center or a guidance department that will have resources for you. So make use of those. And the last tip is to enjoy the experience. This is a tremendous amount of growth. Over the next 6 months, if you are a rising senior, you will probably do the most growth that you've ever done in all of your academic lifetime, because you will be doing a lot of self-reflecting, you'll be determining what your priorities are, and you're going to be journaling it and writing it down and making notes of it. So you're going to do a lot of growth, and I hope that you celebrate that, because it's always fascinating to me to see how the seniors leave the school versus how they came into the school. Quickly, the 4 years that you are in high school are what count most. 8th grade is mentioned here because if you took a foreign language that was at a high school level, or a math class that was at a high school level, then you would mention it in your college application. But otherwise, anything you did before high school was just for fun. For those of you who may be freshmen or going into your freshman year, what you want to do when you enter high school is develop excellent study habits. Opt to take honor courses if they're available, participate in a team, and then don't stress too much about your college, about your freshman classes, because not all colleges look at your freshman year. However, if you're planning to do a more elite schools, they will absolutely look at your freshman year. Your sophomore year is probably going to have limited AP classes, and so don't stress too much about loading up on AP classes your sophomore year. But take advantage of what you can do. Consider having a job, maybe visit some local colleges, walk on campus to get a feel for college life. However, because of COVID-19, maybe that means you go to their Instagram page instead. So junior year is highlighted. It's, always talked about as the most important year. And colleges really, by this point, want to have examples of rigorous coursework, community involvement, and clearly expressed interest in what you hope to study. So if, for example, if you're hoping to go into computer science or engineering or nursing, they're hoping that you have something else outside of school that complements that interest. So maybe a hobby or volunteer work. So while everything's suddenly shut down or slowed down right now, consider journaling, how you've spent this time and how you've adapted to this change and challenge. So not only do we have a shelter in place and distant learning, we actually have a historic civil rights movement, which that's something else that you can journal about. This is an important topic, and colleges want to know how you feel about that. And historically, you can look back on this in 10, 20 years and make note of what your feelings were. And as you do this journaling, this is excellent practice for you, because you will be writing about yourself for college applications. So it's a great way to practice and to find your voice. When you are making your college applications, you really want to be as polished as possible. So take advantage of an opportunity to mark history, but also to journal about yourself. And then your senior year, you really want to maintain that rigorous course load and show colleges that you're ready to continue at the collegiate level. And do not get senioritis, because colleges have rescinded offers when students have kind of slipped a little bit. So these are the requirements to be admitted to the UCs and the CSUs. If you are at a Campbell Union High School or a private school or any of the surrounding high school districts in the area, you have met this criteria. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You will get a copy of this presentation at the end, so you can review the classes that you've taken to make sure that you have everything in order. Colleges know and understand the rigor of classes offered at each school and what's required to graduate. So something to keep in mind is that if you are a student at Prospect, you will be compared to other students at Prospect or at other schools similar to Prospect, like perhaps Westmont. If you are at Mitty, you will be compared with your peers, not with Prospect peers. So that's something to understand, that if you are taking challenging courses, compare yourself to your peers and your school, what's offered. And don't try to compare apples and oranges, because each school handles the rigor differently. So the UCs and CSUs will only look at your 10th and 11th grade years. Most privates will look at 9th, 10th, and 11th. The UCs, CSUs limit GPA bump considerations to 8 AP classes. The UCs and CSUs will only use the A through G classes to calculate your GPA. So testing is becoming a smaller part of the application review, if considered at all. There's some test blind schools, and the CSUs are one of them. So the essays and personal insight questions are opportunities to piece everything together. So keep in mind all of those aspects, your GPA, your extracurriculars, and the rigor of your coursework, that your essays and personal insight questions are how you put all of that together. So what you've done in high school matters. When you apply to college, admission officers look at more than just your grades. They also take note of what you've done outside the classroom. Your extracurricular activities such as jobs, sports, clubs, and volunteer work give colleges a better sense of who you are and show them what you can bring to their campus community. So this past semester has been unique. Take time to reflect on how you've adapted to the challenge. Were there activities important to you that you missed out on? Did you suddenly have more responsibilities? Did you discover a new talent or hobby? Talk this over with your parents or another trusted adult if you need help brainstorming. So some examples of how COVID-19 may have impacted some students' lives are, I know several students who all of a sudden became homeschool instructors. They have younger siblings that they needed to help get through their elementary school classes. There's other students that I saw at the grocery store who their parents lost their jobs, and all of a sudden they needed to help with providing food and rent. So this has been very personal and in some cases traumatic. Everyone has a different story to tell, and spend some time reflecting on that. It doesn't mean that you need to write about it in your college application, but definitely spend some time reflecting on it, practice your writing, and figure out how that impacted you, because it could be an opportunity where you take pride in how you did handle it. I've been extremely impressed with all of the teenagers and how they've been so helpful. So summer and extracurriculars. This is kind of a breakdown of how colleges look at your extracurriculars. And they fall in different categories. We have students who take more school. We have students who volunteer, students who work, internships, travel, and family responsibilities. And I added pandemic because it has been unique and personal. Think about ways that all of this falls into place where you have shown leadership, initiative, community involvement, and dedication. Those are really the key elements that colleges are looking for. They want to know what kind of student is coming onto their campus and how will they bring those traits to their school. Colleges are not looking necessarily for more students. They're looking for citizens on their campus. So in a way, it's easy to be a student because things are mapped out for you. The difficult part is being a citizen. And so that's when you look at your extracurriculars and discover how have you really contributed to the community that you live in and that you're a part of. When we are using facts to find fit colleges, it does make it a lot easier. So I always tell students the best way to find a good fit for college is that you look far ahead. Where do you want to be, say in 5 or 10 years? If you are a rising senior in 5 years, you're going to be a college graduate. Where do you want to be in those 5 years? So do you know what you want to study? If you already know what you want to study, that's a great way to start. The location, how close to home or how far away from home do you want to be? I know that the recent shelter in place has impacted a lot of student choices. Some of them want to stay really close to home now, and then there's others who are hoping to be a little bit farther away. Have you thought about whether you want to be at a research university or a liberal arts college? Testing, the SAT and ACT is usually done the spring your junior year. That was not able to happen. So there's been adjustments. Almost every college across the nation recognizes that not all students will be able to test and has adapted somehow. Most are now test optional. All UCs, in fact, are optional, and many are test blind, the CSUs, and this is becoming one of the lowest priorities for schools right now. So I want students to know that you're so much more than a 4-hour test. Please do not stress about the testing. It's not adding value to your college application at this point. So the application season season is fall your senior year. So you want to plan ahead and make use of your summer to tackle essays, no deadlines, and mark your calendar clearly. GPA for college admission at college applications is determined freshman through junior year. So because of distant learning, your GPA may have been stalled or negatively impacted. Make use of the additional comment segment of each college app to document how you adapted or were adversely challenged. Colleges are expecting you to explain this past semester.
Amy,
And yes.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Somebody has a question. They're asking you to explain what test blind means.
Okay, so I thank you for that. I will go a little bit farther into that, but test blind means even if you take the test, they're not going to look at it. You can, so for example, all the CSUs are not looking at SAT or ACT tests. So if you send it, they will not look at it. And the reason why so many colleges are adapting to how they're looking at testing is because of accessibility. There's a lot of students who will not be able to test because of the cancellations. So, great question. So for the GPAs, the average GPA of incoming students are always reported for each college. So that's information that you should look at when you're compiling your college list and see how you match to that. The other thing, let me see, you want to use self-assessment when you find your fit. So this really takes a lot of personal reflection because you need to determine what your priorities are. Are your priorities the faculty, program, location, distance from home, cost, reputation, diversity, size, sports, financial aid? There's also disability considerations, atmosphere, student body, facilities, housing, clubs, extracurricular. So all of those determine whether or not it's a fit for you. And I definitely suggest talking to other students who may already be in college and ask, wow, what do you wish that you had prioritized before? And because they're excellent sources for information. Okay, hold on. So when you're coming up with your list, a well-rounded college list has 10 schools. And I like using, some college advisors don't like using safety schools, but I think it's easy to understand. So a safe school is a school that when you look at their profile and you look at your profile, you're pretty sure that you're going to be admitted. And But when you put those schools on your list, make sure that they're schools that you would like to attend. Don't put a school that you know you're going to be admitted to, but you would never attend. That's a waste of money. But there's plenty out there. Put a school that you know you'll be accepted and that you're happy to attend. The target schools, and that's where you want to have about 4, are the schools that you meet the profile, you like what they have to offer. There's always that off chance that you may not be admitted, but you're pretty sure that you will be. And then the reach schools are a little more of a challenge to be admitted into. And I think it's always a good idea to have those reach schools, because you never know. And I think it's good to stretch yourself a little bit. And there's also the chance or the possibility, when you have bad news or you're not accepted, it can be a moment of growth. And that is what I find fascinating when I see the way the seniors respond to disappointment, is that they take it in stride and they always grow from it. So while, I mean, of course I don't wish disappointment for anyone, I think there's value in it, especially when you challenge yourself. Here are some resources for virtual college tours. And I made a video a few months ago when we were first in shelter in place of how to enrich your virtual college tour. And we have slides for that with the other resources. But there's so many ways that you can really almost get your hands dirty and visit a lot of schools and figure out what's out there and how you see yourself at those schools. So for college admissions tests, this is a pretty hot topic, and I can't tell you how many times I have received messages from mostly parents who are concerned. So the biggest news recently was that the UCs promised to eliminate the SAT and ACT testing requirements from their application considerations in the next couple years. What that means to you is that the UCs will look at test scores with the lens of added information, like they would if a student has one more extracurricular activity. Testing has become an indicator of privilege, and schools are hesitant to fuel more access to students who already have an edge over other students. Accessibility for all students creates an even playing field and fosters authentic learning environments, which is the direction the UCs are going. The CSUs will not even look at test scores this year, so even if you send in scores, they will not be viewed. So please do not worry about testing and gaining an edge on other applicants. It's important to stay focused on your personal goals. If you are feeling stressed about testing and studying for it, then it's not adding value to your application. Use this time to explore colleges and focus your energy on how you're right about yourself in essay prompts or personal insight questions. Take time to evaluate your priorities. Have you determined those yet? Journal about how the shelter-in-place order and remote learning has impacted you and your plans for after graduation. Taking time to reflect on current events will help you focus on your goals and provide practice for writing college essays. If you have questions, please contact me and we can discuss this further. And as an added note, I added this yesterday. Yale just announced yesterday that it's going test optional for this application cycle. And that is the trend. And I think the bigger question when you're looking at schools are for the schools that are requiring test scores, and there are some out there, there's actually still a lot. I would ask myself, why are they requiring that? Why have they not made any adjustments because there's a huge group of students who will not be able to apply to those schools. So that's just something to consider, but I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions.
Yeah, Amy, there is a question in the chat. The question is, if colleges are SAT blind, how do I know which is my safe school and target school if I have a 3.9 versus a 3.5 GPA?
Um,
Would you like me to say that again?
okay, so if you have a 3.9 GPA, there are going to be probably a lot of safety schools. Did you say safety or target?
I think the question has to do with distinguishing between your safe school and your target school. How do I know my safe school versus how do I know which is my target school?
Okay, all right. So great question. That is tricky. So there's a lot of nuances in this. And there's actually a lot of opportunity because what you can do is if you cannot determine that by looking at the school profile, what you can do is if this is a school you're really interested in, look to see who the admission officers for this region is and reach out to them. Make an account with the school or sign up for their newsletter because a lot of schools track interest by whether or not a student has an account with them. But definitely reach out to the admissions officers at those schools to ask those subtle questions because this is all new to everyone. And so I don't have a ready answer for you. But by reaching out to the admission officers, you build a relationship, and sometimes those relationships make a difference. So, and that's going to be more meaningful for students who are looking at their fit schools and their reach schools. Yes.
Amy, there's one other question here. The question is, do out-of-state colleges still look at SAT, ACT scores?
So every school is different, and that is another nuanced question because a lot of scholarship is determined by those test scores. So if you are looking at, for example, University of Arizona, they are test optional, so you can be admitted without a test score. But if you're looking for a better scholarship, they're hoping that you will take the SAT or ACT, and then they can determine the scholarship level. For this application or the past application cycle for the class of 2020, they have extended their test dates. So if you are entering as a freshman this year, you still have time to take the SAT or ACT to determine your scholarship. So to answer your question, every school is different. The out-of-state students going into Oregon, for example, their public schools are all test optional, but every school handles it a little bit differently. That's really why it's so important to come up with your college list first, and keep it to 10 so that you can have a spreadsheet where you say, okay, do I need to take the test? Do I not need to take the test? Okay, they're optional. How long can I take the test if it's for a scholarship? Do I have until just before I start freshman year? So those are all the things that you can add to your spreadsheet to help determine. Are there any other questions on testing?
I think we're good, Amy. I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this slide kind of explains a little bit more about test optional, test blind, test required. So, and it might be repetitive. Every school's developed their own policy. Most notable is that California students is that California State University schools are test blind, meaning they do not look at scores or consider them. The University of California is test optional. The SAT, ACT are not required. However, if students take it, great, report it. If not, that's okay. It will not put students at a disadvantage. We know times are very different right now, so don't stress about trying to take it. Subject exams are not required, and again, don't stress about taking them during this time and will not put students at a disadvantage. And that's from Melanie. She's a really close friend and a admissions officer at UC Davis. So she speaks the truth, and what is important is we don't want students to be stressed, and also to provide access to all students. And then the additional information that I mentioned on the rest of the slide, I had already talked about with Oregon Public Schools and the University of Arizona. So the responsibility. And students are responsible for making sure applications are complete. So keep this in mind. If you are about to send your student away to college, they really need to do this on their own, and they need to own it. And they are absolutely capable of this responsibility. So normally we would plan ahead with testing, but now let's just do what you feel is going to benefit you most, and if you're able to schedule it. Know your deadlines and requirements for each college application, including time zones. I recently had a student miss a deadline because she was applying in Texas, but she went by Pacific time zone instead of the Central time zone, and she missed out on, she missed the deadline. Ask for letters of recommendation weeks or months in advance, and make sure to write a thank you note. Plan enough time to write your personal insight questions or your essays and have them reviewed. Do not make your procrastination someone else's emergency. And that means that I suggest by the beginning of November, you should have your essays or personal insight questions done, ready for review, so that you can make adjustments. But if you're pushing it to the end of November, that you're already into Thanksgiving, and you may not be able to reach people who would best be able to review your essays or personal insight questions. And it is the student's responsibility to confirm all supporting documents are prepared, sent, and received. And that includes the school report, letters of recommendation, transcript, test scores, etc. So there are several different types of college admission options. Regular admission means that they have a deadline and just one deadline, and that's what you use. Rolling admissions, like the University of Arizona, they'll start accepting applications, I think August 1st, and it rolls through until March. Early decision is an important distinction, because early decision means it's binding. If you decide to apply early, which is before the regular deadline, and it's a decision, it means if they accept you, you will attend, and that means no matter the cost. And then early action is an earlier deadline, but it's not binding. And the benefit of applying early, and I recommend that students apply early if they can, is it gives you the privilege to some of the scholarships that they offer. So if you're applying to an expensive private school, for example, apply early because you will have better access to scholarships. Are there any questions about admission options? Okay. Your college application prep work. Essays and personal insight questions. Who are you outside of academics? This is what you'll be spending the bulk of your essays writing about. Your writing should be concise, yet eloquent, and essays are meant to piece together your GPA, extracurriculars, and interest in a compelling way. You don't want to repeat anything that's already seen on your application. You don't need to list every club if you've already listed that already on your application. And you don't need to say what your GPA is because it is on your application. So what you want to do is use the essays and personal insight questions to kind of tell the whole story and piece everything together. Remember that essays are going to be longer and can have more narrative than the UC personal insight questions, which are meant to be more direct. So those UC personal insight questions, think of them as an interview and feel comfortable being direct. They're not expecting you to set up the background or anything else. They don't want to hear about your grandmother unless it directly ties into you. So when you're reading your personal insight questions, make sure you ask yourself, am I learning more about myself or someone else or something else? So it should be all about you. You're the rock star during the next 6 months. So the UCs and CSUs have you self-report grades on application. Most others require a transcript. So know how to report grades for each school and have your transcript ready or handy. Make sure your college list is complete in Naviance and that you have matched it with Common App if you are applying to private or out-of-state schools. This is how your school counselor will send all supporting documents to colleges. Know the platform of applications. So example, the UCs have their own application, the Common App for a lot of out-of-state schools and private schools. There's also the Coalition. And how much writing is required for each school. I've seen some students on the spreadsheet that you should create for yourself have another column for essays and supplemental essays so that they know how much work is involved. And then a tip to help you with this process is go ahead and learn new words and have them become part of your everyday vernacular. You're going to be spending a lot of time writing. It's a good exercise to learn new words, become comfortable, and be fascinated about writing, because this is going to showcase you. You will stand out more if you are comfortable writing and you have flexed a little bit. And also have about 4 to 5 personal descriptors, like compassionate or nature lover, things that describe you best. Since you're going to be writing a lot about yourself over the next few months, it's good to know how to talk about yourself. And this is a very important topic, financing college. I think that it is definitely not talked about enough with families. What happens is, true story, happens every year. A student applies to all these great schools. They're happy, they get admitted, and then they find out that their families either cannot afford that or will not pay for that. Sometimes there's family events that happen and things change that can't be helped. So if you're talking with your student about how much money you're willing to spend for college, it's helpful, because that's how you determine your your college list, and you're just informed. So know your expected family contribution before applying to college. This is a good time to have a family to discuss about who's paying for college and what's expected from the student. Every college has a net price calculator. Use it to determine your cost before applying. With the net price calculator, it's a nifty little tool is that a lot of times they will calculate merit scholarships into that if they readily offer that to students. So it is helpful.
Amy,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt?
Yeah, of course.
Somebody's asking in the chat, is there a sample spreadsheet format that you can share with us that we can use as a starting point?
I have one somewhere, and I will add it to this document when I find it. So
okay,
at some point today.
okay. So yeah, just to let everybody know, I'm going to be sharing a document from Amy when this is over. I'll send it out in an email, and it will have links to a lot of the resources that she's talking about. And Amy will include a link to a sample spreadsheet.
Okay. All right. So every college has the net price calculator. The other thing that is underutilized is filling out the FAFSA. And I hear this a lot in our community is that, oh, I'm not going to qualify for FAFSA. It's just a waste of time. I shouldn't fill it out. Well, that may be the case. I suggest filling it out anyway, because some schools use that to determine merit scholarship, not necessarily to determine, they just need it as part of how they reconcile their files, like data for them, who's getting merit scholarships and random information like that. Now, for FAFSA, it's important because things happen. You may be financially sound right now, but it's insurance during this 4 years, because if for whatever reason you lose your job, someone passes away, there's a layoff, an injury, or a global pandemic, I mean, your student can go to the financial aid office and say, I need to see if I qualify for new financial aid, or can you reassess my financial aid? And if they have your FAFSA on file, they can do that. But if they don't have it, they can do nothing. So it's a good idea to just go ahead and fill it out. It really doesn't take that much time, and it does provide a peace of mind. And then if you qualify for aid, it's even better. The other profile that's used is the CSS, and that's usually for private schools. And it's similar to the FAFSA, except for it's a lot longer. They ask a lot more questions, but it also gives you the opportunity to explain maybe a unique situation. So if you have family in another country that you're supporting, then you can mention that on the CSS. Other ways of financing college, there are scholarships. A lot of schools have merit scholarships. There's need scholarships. And then every college and a lot of most high schools are really excellent resources for finding more scholarships.
Amy, can I interrupt you real quick? Just to let everybody know, in the library, we have a reference collection, and in that reference collection, there is a big book of scholarships. Now, right now, the library's not open, but so it's not accessible. But when we reopen, I recommend checking it out, because it's amazing the number that are available. And sometimes they focus on specific types of interests or demographics. So if you're interested in that, you should check it out when the library reopens.
Thank you. On the note of scholarships, I've had students who will apply to 40 colleges, and then come and ask me for scholarship information. And probably the first thing I would suggest is, if you're going to apply for scholarships, don't apply for 40 schools. You can only attend one school. And so keep that in mind. If that's why talking about the budget is so important. Okay, so another consideration are WUI schools. So WUI stands for the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program, through which students can attend participating institutes and other schools for reduced tuition. Instead of paying full out-of-state tuition, a WUI participant pays the regular in-state plus 50% of that amount. So often students are able to attend out-of-state public universities at a lower cost than a UC or CSU and easily graduate within 4 years. So that's actually an important distinction, is to consider out-of-state schools, because if, for example, if you were to go to the University of Montana, you would qualify most likely for their WUI program, and to attend and live on campus is $20,000 a year. If you are to go to one of the CSUs, for example, San Diego State, to live on campus and to attend is about $30,000 a year. And it's not guaranteed that you will graduate in 4 years. So those are important considerations when you are looking when you're compiling your college list. For that spreadsheet, you can add a column of graduation rate. Will you be able to graduate in 4 years? Because that is going to impact your overall cost. And not just the cost of your education, but income that you will not be earning if you have an extended graduation date. Okay. Other expenses. Now, I do want to, if you're watching this with your student, I want to circle for this, the time for payback. It's a fun game because it's a little exaggerated with how expensive things are and choices that you make in college, but it's a fun way to kind of highlight how expensive school is and things that should be considered. So your other expenses are going to, while tuition and room and board is public knowledge, and at every institution there's many additional costs to consider. You have the books and lab fees, which are always underestimated. Travel to and from the school each semester. Are you going to come home for breaks? Gas and parking permits, and in the case of my son, speeding tickets and parking violations. That happens. Plan for fun money. Students are going to have a hard time staying exclusively on campus, only dining on cafeteria food for the entirety of their college career. So there will be additional support on campuses, work study, loans, and summer jobs. So those are things that have those conversations and plan for them. I think it's important to talk about the stress that teens are going through right now, and how parents can be a resource for them to ease the stress. So there's time management issues, organizational skills that they need to manage, usually a lack of sleep, although apparently the best part about the pandemic is that all of our teens are catching up on sleep. So we should celebrate that. As we continue with the stress, we need to recognize that teens don't necessarily feel that their life is their own right now. They have less control, multiple people they have to report to, their parents, teachers, employers, clubs. They don't want to disappoint their parents and their expectations. There's hormones, emotions. There's this cyber persona and bullying. fitting in versus being unique, their independence, the fear of failure, am I good enough, perceived expectations, different coping mechanisms, drugs, alcohol, AP and honor classes, keeping pace with GPA, peer pressure, cost of testing and applications, and viewing application as a process, not an experience. So typically, college application experience only adds to their anxiety. So this may be the most stressful time of a teen's life, and the parent's role is to be a resource to ease stress and not the cause of it. So planning helps with stress.
Amy, can we pause this for a moment?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I just want to let everybody know it's almost 2 o'clock and the program is scheduled until 2. I'm willing to stay here. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that Amy can continue with her presentation. But again, you know, if you only scheduled yourself to have 1 hour available and you need to go, I mean, it's completely understandable. But we're going to continue for a while longer if you can stay.
Thank you. And I apologize for so much information. I hope it's been useful, but I'm going to keep going, and I don't think we have too much longer. So the college application experience. This is the perfect opportunity to teach values and leave students with a lifetime of skills. Prepare your child to leave home confident, knowing where the family stands on important issues. Maximize your time together in a positive way. Have a plan, start early, seek help. Lots of resources online at every school and at our library. Communication is key. Verbally make time to speak together as a team. The environment at home is influential and will help students discover the right fit school. Set up a routine of just once a week for college talk. It's a great opportunity to reinforce family values and make the application experience less stressful and more meaningful. College is an experience, and you will get out what you put into it. So no matter where you attend, your commitment is the most important factor. And the picture is my son and I when we went on college tours. I really enjoyed going through his college application experience with him, and I hope that's something that the parents enjoy with their students, and that it's something that everyone can look back on and go, oh my gosh, that actually was fun. So what recent applicants wish they had known after they finished everything is that had I had access to a mentor, I could have made much more informed choice and seen college as a means to a larger goals. Wish I had started writing essays earlier. My essays improved with each application, so regular decision essays were much better than my early action ones. Applying early makes you eligible to more scholarships, and it's not easy to write about yourself. This is some suggested reading, some useful websites, and all of this will be shared on the document that Randall sends out. And a note about independent education counselors. While I'm available at the public schools, a lot of other people will find comfort having hire someone that will help them with their college application experience. Here's a list of 6 people that I've worked with and that I recommend. And then that was it. Are there any questions?
If you have a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask it. Okay, so Amy, it appears everybody feels like they've been well informed and they don't have any questions right now. Okay, so I would like to thank our guests for being here Thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this information with teens and parents. And I want to let those of you who are here, I want to let you know about a couple things. Oh, okay. Actually, I see that there is a question. Someone had a question about internships. So Amy Lahari is wondering if you could just talk a little bit about opportunities for internships.
So if you're looking for internships, I actually get this question a lot. And normally I would have resources available at the school for internships. However, this summer is going to be hard to find internships. But if that's, I don't know what year your child is, or if that's for you. This is a unique year, so internships are going to be difficult. If you are looking specifically for an internship, this is what I've recently told students though. Understand what you want to do, know what your skills are, so prepare your resume, and maybe even prepare a LinkedIn account, because that is actually how a lot of people are networking and finding opportunities. This is going to be a tricky year to find an internship if you're looking for this summer. But if you're planning ahead for next year, go ahead and make a professional profile.
Okay. So I want to let everybody know that I put a link to a survey. If you could please use that link to give us some feedback about the program, what you thought. I'll also send that link out in an email. I will be sending an email with links to some of the resources that Amy was speaking about. And I want to just mention a couple more things. If you don't know it, the library is going to be starting a curbside pickup service called Express Pickup. It starts on Monday. So even though the library is going to be closed, which means you can't go into the library, you can put holds on items and you'll be able to pick them up outside the library starting on the 15th. And also, if you don't know it, the summer learning program is starting, and it already started. You can sign up, and all children and teens will get 2 free books just for signing up. And you can pick up the 2 books at one of the express pickup locations. There's going to be 10 branches where you can do that. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to thank Amy. Thank you again so much for being here. I'm so glad you took your time to do this. And I also want to thank those of you who signed in and participated. I want to thank you for being here as well. And if there are no more questions, I think we can sign off.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, I don't see any questions popping up in the chat. So okay, so I'm gonna end the meeting, Amy, and
Okay.
you're gonna send me like a document or something with the links that I'm gonna share.
Well, I think if you just share the bit.ly that I sent you, it has everything on here. And then I'll find a document, and anything that I add for that, the spreadsheet, I'll add to the resource page.
Okay, when you say the bit.ly, do you mean the link to this presentation?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay, so I'll send that out, and then if there's anything else, you can let me know.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you, Randall.
you're welcome. Bye, Amy.
Bye.
Thank you.